We are
Oh,
now.
we are live. Sorry, I wasn't on the ball then. I was busy looking for our page on my phone. So I can see if you ask us any questions, because that's what we're
Mhm.
here for, 6 o'clock UK time on a Thursday. Holistic Vet Sisters. And we're here to answer your questions and give you support on anything to do with pet health and happiness. So today we've got Dr. Lise Hanson with us, myself, Caroline from the APNC. We've got Beatrice with us, one of our regular Holistic Vet Sisters. And we had a little nose poking in there, didn't
Yeah.
we,
Yes,
Beatrice? That's very sweet. She wants to be
mhm,
part of Holistic Vet
of course.
Sisters and help all the dogs.
Yeah,
Oh, it's lovely
absolutely.
to be here again. So we had the quiz, didn't we, last time, the Kahoot, and it was so much fun. So I've been introduced to these now, and yeah, I think it'd be super cool to do another one at some point. So thank you for those of you that took part and had fun last week in the Kahoot. But we're back doing our usual round of questions and chat
And
today.
let's just say the link there is that Beatrice, who is a wonderful holistic vet from Munich and who's been with us before, also won the quiz last
She
week.
did.
So, so congratulations, Beatrice.
As I said, I'm usually not that quick, so that's really surprising.
Congratulations. We'll have
So,
to talk. We'll have to discuss what
uh,
could be a prize apart from getting to be here with us
hmm
on Holistic Vet
which is
Sisters.
always a prize. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you
yes.
go. Well
hmm
said. Well said. We've had some great questions. Um
I can't see us live, you know. It says we're live here, but I can't see us on our posts.
hmm
That's odd, isn't it?
Let me just check.
Normally it's Tina that checks for us when she's with us. And or
We
it
are
I
comes
can
up.
live.
see
We're
us.
live.
Oh, okay,
I can
great,
see
good.
us.
My phone is not playing ball today.
hmm
Sorry, everyone. I will keep trying though, because we want to be able to see um, if you ask us questions as we're talking.
We
So
are live. That's
hmm
all is well. Now let me find the first question and I will read it loud. It's a really interesting question. Oh, hang on. That's because I'm here as me. I need to be here as Holistic Vet Sisters. And
great. Yes, I can see now. We've had a few people. Right, brilliant.
okay.
Michelle says we're definitely live. Great, thank you.
hmm
So far, so good. Shall I read the first question loud? It's because it's not on the page. It's in the DM section. It's from Sally, who says, I'm having a bit of an issue with worms with my 7-year-old border collie. I've been doing worm counts every 3 months for a good few years now and had a good run of clear results. But the count before Christmas was very high for roundworm, which I've treated with Panacure. The retest about a month later was clear for roundworm, but very high for hookworm. So I've treated with Panacure again, and I will retest in a couple of weeks. He's a raw fed, a good brand, has Maxi Digest daily, ground pumpkin seeds weekly, and I've also given Vermex original liquid for 3 consecutive days, once a month, which I will resume as soon as I get a clear count. Have I just been unlucky, or is there anything else I can do? We live rurally and walk where there is livestock, mainly sheep, and plenty of wildlife. He is partial to eating poo. Is this the most likely cause of infection? Very many thanks. So a 7-year-old who didn't used to have worms, but suddenly seemed to be consistently testing positive on stool samples.
And no other
hmm
symptoms. Makes you wonder whether there's been a slight imbalance in the ecosystem or whether the Panacur has unbalanced the microbiome, because it is like an ecosystem in there. And there's an argument to say that you need a flourishing, diverse ecosystem with all these different bacteria. And you often need what we call bad bacteria to keep the good ones functioning. And so they don't just put their feet up and, have a great time. So whether there's something shifted there. I would wonder whether there's other things going on, or whether it was just that it was picked up somehow, and it hasn't been able to be got on top of, as the Guardian's saying. But I'd want to know if there was other things going on as well, because it may be that there was a slight dip in the ecosystem immunity and the strength of that ecosystem to allow that imbalance to happen in the first place.
Yes, that too. But I would, if that dog was in my practice, the fact that the dog is eating the feces of other animals is the first sign that there's something missing. I used to think that every dog eats feces of other animals, but they don't, because now I have a dog who doesn't, really doesn't, and she has a very healthy gut. That's the one thing. So they always look for something. I mean,
Mhm.
the dog I now have, when she finds horse poo or something like that, she just pees on it, but she doesn't eat it, you know? So that's the first thing. And if a dog at that age, where they are usually from the immune system, they're very, very high. If they suddenly have worms, because usually the immune system should take care of that at that age. And if they suddenly have worms, I'd actually do a blood test and see if everything is okay, and probably a microbiome test to see if everything is okay. So really to get to the ground, to the source of that problem.
Yeah.
Because something, and the imbalance is really the thing. Something got imbalanced, whatever. And Panacur, is also not so. I mean, it's not a bad medication, but it has a lot of resistance. Also, it's known not to work as not 100%. I mean, nothing works 100%, but with Panacur you have a lot of resistance. And so that's also a thing. But if that dog came to my practice, I would go the other way around and try to stabilize the imbalance, which is really a good
Yeah.
word for it. Yeah.
It's almost as if the worms themselves are not that big a worry.
No.
Worms,
Yeah.
what's the problem is that in this case, they almost sound like a warning signal that something
Yes.
has happened to this
Yeah.
dog's immunity. Why worms now? I agree completely with what you both say. That's the real question to me as well. What's going on here? Normally, I would almost say that testing, it sounds like this dog has had a stool test every 3 months for a long time. And I would normally consider that unnecessary to the point of being almost silly. I would never recommend that you do a stool sample on a healthy adult dog every 3 months for
No, me
fear of
neither.
worms. That's just complete overkill. But in this case, it has picked something up that tells us that something's going on with this dog's microbiome or immunity, or something else is going on. So I would also want to know, does he seem completely bright? Was he vaccinated recently? Is there a stressful time in the family? What's the
Whatever,
bigger
yeah.
picture? Yeah. Why is he weak right now? He would not be picking up the worms. He would not get the infection from eating the poo.
And
That was
even
part of the
if, I
question as
mean,
well.
if the stomach acid is the way it should be, they shouldn't even go into the gut. They should just be killed there.
Yeah.
Which is also a thing to think about,
But part of the question was is he picking this up from eating
Yeah,
poo?
yeah,
And
yeah.
he's not.
No.
But there's something has happened to his resilience and his
Yes.
immunity and his that is worth a wider look to try and
Yeah.
find out what's going on.
Yeah,
Definitely.
maybe you can go to Biome for Pets and have a microbiome test if you're in the UK. Could maybe do that, Sally. That
Mhm.
might be worth doing. I don't know how you both feel about grapefruit seed extract, but I have seen that used for dogs that have worms. I know even though it's natural, it's still what Lise would maybe say is the sticky plaster, not the solution. But
Mhm.
yeah, as well as finding out what's going on, maybe
Yeah, but you
grapefruit seed
also, I
extract.
think it makes sense to treat the worms with
Yes.
whatever it needs to
I
treat the
would, yeah.
worms. It's not one or the other. Absolutely, let's treat the worms. But it's not the whole story treating the worms. It's also trying to work out why are there worms there now
Why have
that
they
weren't there before.
proliferated? Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
see it anyway because she treated the worms, and the roundworms are gone, and now it's a different
The
kind
other
of
ones,
worm.
yeah, the other
You
ones
know?
come forward, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, yeah. But that is interesting. It's a bit of a takeaway for people that if dogs are eating stools, they're not necessarily catching worms. They're not
No.
Mm.
infecting themselves. That is interesting. Because
Yes.
we would presume, wouldn't we, that that would happen?
No, that doesn't happen. Sometimes you can get false. You can, I mean, it's a thing. For instance, if you live at, like I do practice in an area where we see quite a lot of lungworm, so we do a lot of stool testing to find them, and you have to be aware that if they eat fox poo, for instance,
Mm.
it can look like they've got lungworm and they don't actually. It's just going through them. It's not their infection. It's just that they ate some poo from a fox. They had it, but that's not how you get infected. It just happens to be in your poo because it went through you. So it's not a source of infection of worms, but it can be it can lead you to
That's
think maybe.
also really interesting, though, because I think the proponents of the lungworm drugs would try to tell us differently.
I don't think so,
No?
but
Okay.
no,
Does seem
no.
like that. Does seem as if we sort of walk away thinking that they can catch this lungworm.
I think the life cycle, if you're in an area where you see a lot of lungworm, the life cycle is quite well described. But if you just zoom in and look at the stool sample, and you see lungworm in a
Not an
dog's poo,
indication.
as a vet, you have to be aware that maybe the dog has lungworm, but maybe it just ate some fox poo and it went straight through.
Yeah.
But in any way, it's not a source of infection in terms of worms.
Interesting.
But it could, like Beatrice said, be a sign that
Yeah, it is a
he
sign.
knows that he needs to improve his microbiome, and that's one way
Yeah.
of doing it. I also think that some dogs just happen to find horse poo particularly delicious, I have to say. But but that's I mean, I agree that if a dog eats dog poo, there's something going on. There's something wrong. But I do think that some dogs, even healthy dogs, find horse poo quite irresistible. And then there's probably a scale of how delicious poo is. But
And
sounds
some
like a
dogs,
children's book, doesn't it?
Yeah.
yeah, and some dogs really have a thing for cat poo,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
especially when
goodness.
they are fed certain things, and then
And there's
Yes.
deer
Yeah.
poo, and
yeah.
yeah.
Lots
But
of poo. Rabbit
yeah.
poo. So we're
Uh-huh.
being asked a question here. How often do you think people should worm count?
I think I'd be interested in what Beatrice thinks about this as well. I would say if you don't automatically worm puppies, which seem exceedingly is something that vets are stepping away from, which is a really interesting field. If you don't automatically worm puppies, either at the breeder or when you get an 8-9 month old week-old puppy, I definitely think you need to worm count them. If you're not going to automatically worm them, and probably more than once during the first 6 months of their life,
Yeah.
something like that. If you have an adult dog, if you're thinking in terms of intestinal worms, I almost wouldn't bother. It's not
Really?
intestinal worms are not a problem in adult dogs. That is something that have been sold, particularly in the UK, by this culture of routinely worming animals that don't have worms. Lots of other countries have realized a long time ago that intestinal parasites are not an issue in adult dogs. There's no need to even think about it. And this whole topic of if I'm not going to give commercial wormers, what shall I do so that my dog doesn't get worms? I still maintain that the only good answer to that is, well, what do you yourself do to not get worms? Worms is not a big problem in adults if they're healthy. Forget about it. The problem is if we're talking heartworms, or lungworm, which is a different scenario. But if we're talking intestinal worms here, in adults, I wouldn't do it. I would only do it if there's an issue. If they're vomiting or they've got diarrhea or you see worms. But it's parasites are generally for young individuals before the immune system is mature. And I would do a worm count for young animals, but I wouldn't do it to adults as a matter of routine. Only if it makes you sleep better at night in a sort of transition period. If you're used to worming all the time and now you worry about it, well, absolutely check once or twice a year if it makes you feel better. But it's not an absolute, there's no real reason to do it.
Although in this case, Sally wouldn't have known if she hadn't been an avid worm counter.
No, and I'm not sure if it would have, again, I mean, I don't think the worms are the problem. I think the reason he's got worms is the problem. And I wonder whether, if Sally's watching, it would be really cool to know if if he seems under the weather, if he's had other things down with him, if he's been exposed to something lately. I think it's just the flashing light that to tell us that there's something going on here, rather than the worms being a problem in themselves.
Yep.
What would you say about worm count stool tests for adults for intestinal parasites, Beatrice?
It depends. If people, it's actually the same. If
Hmm.
people sleep better, then I let them do it once a year. I don't stool count my own dog at all, ever. And that's because a lot of people, I think you get that too, say, what would you do?
Hmm.
And I'm telling them, okay, that's what I do, but it's not necessarily okay for you. You have to sleep. And the only thing, if people have immune suppressed people in the house,
Yeah.
I tell them they can do it more often, and so they feel better. And so, but usually I wouldn't recommend it.
No. No. And in the cases, I mean, there's no harm in doing it.
No,
But it's mostly for the owner's peace of mind, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's not because we absolutely must. And if an adult dog does get intestinal worms to the point that it's an issue, they may vomit worms, or you may see worms in their
Yeah,
poo, and then you treat them.
yeah,
Exactly the same way you would approach it if you yourself got
yes,
worms. Humans get worms too, but it's
yes,
generally not something to worry about unless you're a kindergarten teacher or something.
yes,
And, and then I guess you just wash your hands a lot. But yeah, it's not
yeah,
something to worry about. It's only people wanting to sell wormers to animals that don't have worms that
yeah,
have made it an issue in the first place.
yeah,
But it's an interesting question, I think. What's going on when a 7-year-old dog suddenly gets worms? Because
yes.
that is an unusual situation, and it's likely to not be about the worms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
There was another one, I know. Now my thing is acting up. Did you see the question? Here we are. Rachel says, for a dog that has become sensitive to lots of different proteins, either through candidiasis, gut dysbiosis, or leaky gut, can the sensitivities ever be cured with healing the original issue, or will they always be sensitive to those proteins? That's also a really interesting question. Who wants to go first?
Who wants to go first?
Yeah.
I mean,
let's just say yes. Move on.
I mean, they can for sure. I mean, that's exactly what would just happen if you really do heal and get to grips with the leaky gut
Exactly.
or the intestinal permeability, or, I mean, to be honest, if you've sort of reintroduced a protein and symptoms have reoccurred, I would say that we're not at the stage we want to be yet.
No.
So yeah, it takes sometimes longer than you think it's going to.
Oh, yes.
I mean, and sometimes it depends on, it's that thing where I say it quite often, it's not about what we eat. They used to say you are what you eat. It's about you are what you ate. So it's how what you eat became itself, and the health of that process
Of
as
course.
well. So, for instance, I have clients whose dogs can't have chicken, but they can have herb-fed chicken. They can have
Mm-hmm.
organic herb-fed chicken.
Oh, I have a lot
No
of
problem.
those. Yeah.
Because the chicken itself, the process of growing that chicken, if you like, farming that chicken, was a healthier one. So it meant that the animal and the meat itself was healthier. So I think if you do have a dog with any of those, which are essentially all within the same framework, really, with the gut health going on, yes, you can get to the stage where things shift for your dog and they can have those proteins, but it is a big opportunity to really think about what impact we're having on Earth as well when we're feeding our dogs, and how we
Yes.
can feed them better quality
Yes.
meat, and that way be more compassionate to the whole world as well as healing our dogs. So What do you think, Beatrice? What would
I
you do
agree.
if this
I
dog was?
agree. I have a lot of dogs that can eat organic meat and don't are not good on the what you get in the supermarkets and stuff like that. So I had the same experience, and it's also important to tell um, owners that it takes a long time to
Mm,
get them there.
it
But
can do, can't it?
I mean, there are some dogs that won't ever be 100% okay, and they might keep one or two proteins they don't process or they don't digest well. But most dogs, if people stay with me and they do what I tell them, and I usually say to them that when we start, it usually takes a year or longer to get the dogs back in shape. And but they get back to that they can eat everything.
I
It's
think
really,
it's also, I mean, it- there, I think it goes beyond the physical molecular. There's an antibody being created to this
yes.
because it's like they're like a memory that is held within the body almost energetically. So I wonder if there is more that can be worked on a sort of energetic frequency level rather than just doing the elimination and healing the gut through the ways that we do with nutrition consultancy, you know, moving on to that other way as well might speed up the changes. And very often, as guardians, we think it's okay for us to just do it on our own. And I think there's a lot more support that's needed, which is where something like homeopathy might come in, or energy healing, or just a way to really get those frequencies and change the transformational shift away from the memory of those allergies that will be in your dog's aura, really, and within your dog. There's more we can do, I think.
And really, I mean, I also and always treat the dogs homeopathically as well while I do this. And if I can do more than just treat the gut and treat the symptoms, I usually get them back to normal. And I mean, homeopathy, we know that today has a lot of epigenetic, um,
Yeah.
um, we talk about genetics and we talk about allergies, but that homeopathy can have an input on messenger DNA, RNA, and stuff like that. It's not talked about a lot, really, but it makes such a difference, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think, however we put it, I think we're all agreeing, aren't we, that absolutely it, and I think that's why, in a way, it seems so logical if someone has an allergy, whether it's in their skin or in their gut or wherever they're reacting. It seems so logical and so rational to think, I need to find out what it is that they're allergic to so that
Hmm.
I can remove it. And that is partially possible, I suppose, when we're talking about food and dietary proteins. But generally speaking, certainly when we're talking about atopy and allergies to pollens and
Yeah.
dust mites and all of those things, it's not helpful. But it's also not
Yep.
the point to me. The point is not what they're reacting to. The point is the fact
Yes.
that they're reacting
They're
at
reacting.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the point is that their immune system is working under a misconception that it needs to react to whatever it
Yep.
experiences. And you can't clean the world. You can't, you even if you could, they'll just start reacting to other things. So to me, why not just go straight to the source? And the tool that I know that does that is homeopathy, and
Of course.
balances the immune system so that it stops overreacting. And if someone comes in, saying they can't have chicken or whatever it is, I would absolutely expect that at the end of treatment, they're healthy and they can eat whatever
Yep.
without reacting. So the short answer, yes, it is possible.
Of course.
Mm.
Definitely. Good. And sometimes it can sound like we're using, you can use there's different paths that you can take to achieve the same thing. And there's different, sometimes we talk about leaky gut or dysbiosis or the microbiome, and other times we talk about the immune system, but it's really all, it's just different words, different paths that lead to the same issue. We're addressing the same thing, we're just sometimes doing it in different ways. An acupuncturist would talk about meridians and balancing those, but really we're all saying the same thing. We're just speaking slightly different languages and maybe taking slightly different routes to get there. But the point in any of those situations is that when the animal is healthy and in balance, they should be able to tolerate whatever you give them and not not overreact to it.
Yeah.
And
Although I have to say,
Go on.
sorry, I have to support what Caroline said. I think it's very important to know where the food originally came from and how that was, how that was produced and how that animal was kept, and because it makes such a difference.
But would you not say that that also goes, even if it's not someone who has a particular allergy or insensitivity, it goes for all of us always.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course,
Oh yeah,
of course.
but even more so, sort of brings you the lesson, doesn't it, in events like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also the fact that you're asking the question and the fact that we are questioners and we are what I would call wonderers, I think is just so important, because that's where it starts. You know, if you find yourself wondering something, it's like the universe returns with the answer. It's so amazing. You know, I mean, we get it, the classic thing, I wonder how my friend is, and then they ring us or you bump into them in the street. But if
Yeah.
you stay out loud, I wonder if there's a way my dog can eat chicken again or something like that. You will be given the answer, or you will be a book will fall off the shelf, or you know, the classic things that happen, or you'll bump into someone in a cafe you haven't seen for ages and they just worked with this wonderful holistic vet, or you know, this is how things work. That's how
Yes.
energy works with magnetism. And you know, if you're open and you wonder, you will find the answer. So it's lovely actually that you're asking.
And in the similar vein, often I find, I had this conversation just this afternoon with someone, that it may be caring for an animal that leads someone to explore, diet or
Yeah.
homeopathy or whatever it is, but actually the repercussions, and then their world gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was seeing someone with a cat. I saw him with another cat 7 or 8 years ago, and he just started up by saying that was life-changing, not just for my cat, but just for me, to see
Yeah.
what's possible. Everybody had
Yeah.
said that's impossible, that's terminal, nothing can be done, and the cat's absolutely fine, still alive, healthy as anything. And he said, just to see with your own eyes in a very concrete way that things are not impossible just because people say they are, and then you go and you find out and you learn, had changed his approach to lots of other things as well. And I think that's similar to what you're saying, that when we're curious and we explore, things come, things happen.
And you can't underestimate fear as a
Yeah.
part of the whole thing. I mean, today I had my first patient. The problem isn't actually the dog, it's the guardians, especially she, because she's so afraid about the dog. And I'm not blaming her because she's traumatized and everything, but I think that makes a lot of is but big part of what we're doing, listening to them and trying to get them to be less fearful, less anxious about the dog, and the dogs get more healthy, you know?
That so happens. That's exactly what I do on Canine Flow. It's so exactly what happens. And the simple way is to come out of the mind and back into the heart. We
Yeah.
need to, humanity needs to start coming back into our heart, because the heart trusts. The
Yeah.
heart isn't, we would say, oh, you know, we love our dog from the heart and that's why we don't want to lose them. But the heart would actually trust that you never would.
Yeah.
So if you're living from the heart, you don't have that mental fear that you're going to lose them or that something will happen. And, you know, so when we come back into our hearts, we can really shift that. And there's a place for the mind, but we've overdeveloped it, really.
Yeah, but it's not easy. I mean, I'm currently treating a dog who has a insulinoma. It's a tumor of the pancreas. And the guardian, who is a friend of mine, she went to the hospital to get it diagnosed because the dog just fainted, because of low blood sugar. And she wasn't even asking. And the last thing they told her when she left the clinic was, oh, with operation it's 1 year and without it's 4 months survival time. I mean, why do you do that? Why do you tell people that? I mean, she wasn't even asking them to know.
Yeah, maybe they felt as
And
though
it makes
duty or
like
something.
in you, you know, and you have that in your
Yeah.
mind.
But you know, either way, you still have to come back to living from the heart,
Yeah,
because
but
that
you
will
know,
give you the resilience to
but
cope with the fact your
of
mind has this
course,
piece of
but this
information.
is only
Yeah,
an example because
yeah.
that's what happens all the time. If you don't vaccinate, your dog dies. If you
That-
don't do this, if you, you know, that's what they live with all the time,
mhm.
you know?
Yeah, well, it's the same with kids, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same. But then we have to build our resilience. The more
Oh,
we can
yes.
come out of our minds,
Hmm.
I think is better. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
So questions. We do have some we have a question. Fiona's asking a question on the chat of this live. Do you want me to read that,
Go
Lise?
on. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Fiona's asking about MVD, mitral valve disease. And then she says, B1, would you
Hmm.
do anything specific for support other than the usual clean, fresh diet and reduced chemical load?
Homeopathy.
How did you know they were going to say that,
Surprise.
Fiona? Yeah, so talk about homeopathy, and because we really think of the heart as being mechanistic, don't we? We are told so much about the valves, and it sounds like a car engine the
Well,
way it's
valve, yeah,
talked about. Yeah,
it does,
exactly.
Yeah.
doesn't
So,
it? Yeah.
but, the thought that the heart could be energetic in that way, and that something like homeopathy could influence it is quite an interesting concept. Although I think, on the other hand, we quite easily believe that the heart holds emotions. So, like we kind of believe it, but then we don't. So what I think is really interesting, and I'll just say this before you answer, is there's a wonderful video, and I share it on my Canine Flow course. I've just temporarily forgotten the name of the guy that does it, but he shows how if you have a tea towel, right? And so imagine the tea towel's like this long muscle. And when you twist a tea towel either end, in the end, if you keep twisting it, it pops up and wraps
Yes.
around in
Mm.
itself. This is the heart. And he shows that precisely. So the heart is not a round or a heart-shaped thing that pumps. It is actually a vortex. So it is spinning the blood, spinning. And that's how it's going in and out. And it's such an amazing video because I had this, it was almost like confirmation for me when I saw it, because
Hmm.
I knew that the blood had that vortex within it, that spiral, and spirals really hold energy frequency. They really do. So the heart is holding that energy frequency. It's of you. It's like holding your subconscious, and the same with the dog. And the dog obviously has the biggest heart per body mass of all creatures. So they're holding that electromagnetic spinning charge of you. So I just find that amazing, really, when we think of it, and and all this idea of it being mechanistic is just so, I think, not as amazing as that. But anyway,
Well,
that's
and
what I should say.
Fiona, who asked us there. So Fiona, please tell us, what is it, a Cavalier, or what kind of dog have you got, and how old? And I'm assuming there aren't any symptoms.
Fiona has a little dachshund, I think, but whether this is the dog that she's talking about, I don't know. I'll have to type.
What would you say,
Oh,
Beatrice,
she's
to a
actually written something. Oh no, it's not the breed. That's what she was hoping. That's what she was hoping we'd say, that homeopathy was of use. Um, so let's wait and see if it's her little dog or whether it's another doggy.
Miniature
Oh yes,
dachshund.
miniature dachshund, 5 years, no symptoms.
Okay,
Hmm.
okay. What would you say to that patient in your clinic, Beatrice?
Well, it's not enough to know and to really find a homeopathic remedy because
Of
that's,
course,
yeah.
of course.
And it depends what the guardian wants, but of course, I would like to find the real remedy, and that would probably take care of it for a long time.
And I wonder why I mean, presumably there was a sound. Someone listened to the chest, and there was
How it was found, yeah.
a murmur, and then they've done a scan, I'm guessing, to get the diagnosis. But the big thing there is there are no symptoms.
Symptoms, yeah.
Yeah. And you know, if you have a dog with later stage heart disease, there's a lot you can do in terms of supplements and herbs and all of that. But at this stage, I wouldn't even think that was relevant. You know, it's about optimal health and trying to treat. I would obviously also suggest homeopathy at a deep constitutional level. You know, a remedy that fits this individual. Yeah, exactly. Whereas if it was a 15-year-old dog with a cough and, you know, heart symptoms, then you're looking more maybe at a lower potency treatment if you're using homeopathy, but certainly I would also look at supplements and herbs and things like that. But
in that case,
and it also ties in nicely with what you were saying about fear a minute ago, is that this dog is obviously healthy.
Yes.
You know, this is a dog that is well, is not aware, feels well, has no symptoms. And it's easy when we pursue a diagnosis to suddenly become worried and suddenly, even when he's having a fantastic day running around, to sort of see it through that veil of, oh no, you know, one wouldn't know that you're ill. Which obviously he isn't, because he's fine.
Yeah. And you see that often in that age when they have a B1, which is usually without symptoms, that they stay like this for years.
Yeah. I mean, this doesn't have to impact this dog's health or longevity at all in any shape or form. So that's, I think, the most important message is this is not a reason to worry at all.
Exactly.
Good. Now, Sally, who was writing about, Sally has given us a bit more information. Sally with the border, the 7-year-old border with worms.
Okay.
Says
the next installment.
Yeah, she says she's listening to us now. He has no symptoms. Nothing has obviously changed. He did have a low hookworm count the previous winter. Is it just coincidence that it's been worse in winter? So then my question is he vaccinated annually? You know, is there something that happens to him at that time of year? And she says, yes, he does get an annual leptospirosis vaccine in December.
So,
so that may or may not be significant. It would be a little bit of a flag to me saying that something very difficult happens to his immune system that knocks him out. And Sally is then asking, he's otherwise healthy, although he's always had a bit of a sensitive stomach, which goes back to what Beatrice was saying. He probably
100%.
feels that he needs to improve his microbiome, hence the poo eating. So I think that is something that I would approach, is how to improve his digestion and his gut. And then she says, are you saying that finding worms in a fecal sample doesn't necessarily mean the dog is infected with those worms? I mean, that is what I was saying in my my story with the lungworm. But in this case, I don't think there's any reason to think that he's not infected. I just think, and absolutely, you know, do treat the worms. But as we were saying before, I would almost be more interested in finding out, because he wouldn't become infected. An adult dog with a healthy microbiome and a healthy immune system encounters parasites all the time, but they're strong enough that they're not allowed to infect properly. The immune system deals with them. So I think, sure, treat the worms, but also I would say reconsider the annual leptospirosis vaccine, if nothing else, because clearly that this dog has a wobbly immune system, as is clear from his sensitive gut. And an annual leptospirosis vaccine may be what pushes him over the edge so that parasites take hold. That would be, I can't know this because I don't know the patient, but that would be a possible scenario.
Or that dog would maybe have a good thing if you give Thuja after the leptospirosis vaccine.
Very good point. Yeah. If you are going to give the leptospirosis vaccine, give it homeopathic Thuja to help protect the immune system at that time.
And do have a look on our YouTube because we go into more depth about lepto and vaccines in other episodes, definitely on the YouTube. Facebook is taking them down now, but I think they only stay for 2 weeks. But yeah, they're all on the YouTube. So you can hear us talking about that in more depth.
But I think the way you know already, like, because we've been saying he must have a problem with his immune system, and the vaccine may or may not be something that pushes that, but you actually knew already that he had a problem with his immune system because he's always had a sensitive gut. So I think that's probably his gut saying, actually, I need some more help.
Yeah, because the thing is, the gut and the immune system are kind of the same thing. I mean, there's obviously the bone marrow involved in the immunity as well, but it is basically the gut and the gut really is the immune system, and there isn't some other immune system. It's that kind of is it. So, you know, when I think because so many dogs have sensitive stomachs, we just think, oh, he's got a sensitive stomach, you know, but actually, so many dogs have them because so many dogs have immunity issues.
Mm. And
For many reasons, yeah.
yeah. And the leptospirosis vaccine may be why he has a sensitive gut, or he may be born with a weak immune system, and everything just builds on top of that. But there's more to it than worms. That's for sure.
Okay. So yes, there's been some things in the news, haven't there, lately? You were going to mention about the CMA, but somebody on the comments has mentioned about Chris Packham. I'm just going to have a read of the comment and come back to you.
What? Read it out loud. What does it say?
Oh, okay. Well, Mary's saying about Chris Packham advocating vegetarian, I think it was vegan actually, diet for dogs.
Yeah.
Daisy, a Maltese, is not a good eater, but today I put down some raw lamb alongside carrots and cauliflower. Daisy ate the veg and left the meat. She, bless Daisy. Your views on vegetarian diets. So, okay, I mean, the thing is, I think dogs will, well, I know that dogs will usually self-select what they need at that time. So it is highly likely there was something in or on the carrots and cauliflower that the dog needed at the time. And so that's why she's gone for that. And so because this is how self-selection happens. It works in layers. So an energy will be attracted to another energy, the same as what I was saying about the wandering in life and how things come back to you. We live in a world of frequency. So, and that's how homeopathy works as well, with like attracting like. So essentially, she's had these, and it will have maybe given her what she needed, and it may be that next time she chooses something else. If you give her options, there are people that feed this way all the time. I mean, how they have the time, I don't know, but they will put all bits and pieces out and see what it is the dog will go for. So there's always going to be something that your dog is needed. So I don't know that we can say that that's a definite she will only do well on vegetables just because of that one time. There has always been vegan dog food. So in the 90s, when I was first learning about dog nutrition, we had soya-based dog foods. They weren't called vegan dog foods, but they were. It just is now a trend to talk about veganism and to talk about vegetarianism with dogs. So they're being labeled as such because it's a good marketing ploy for those that want to feed them, but they have always been there. We just didn't necessarily really realize what they were. Now, the issue that I have with vegan and vegetarian dog foods is predominantly the fact that they are of the processed variety. That is the biggest issue with them. So not only is there the possibility, whether you believe or not, that you can have enough amino acids by feeding them vegan or vegetarian, the fact is that 9 times out of 10 people are doing that with a processed diet. And that means that they're all the things that are still a problem with meat-based processed foods are even more of an issue with vegan and vegetarian. So where I stand on it is that I know, and I do have a couple of people that I've worked with, one lady with a Labrador, and absolutely they will not feed them meat. So I have supported them as best I can to do this with fresh food. If you're going to feed vegan or vegetarian, do not do it with processed food.
Yes.
just do not do that. You have to be able to do it with fresh food, because then, in a way, you could make the argument that the poor dog on the useless supermarket kibble is, they're missing out on all the lovely things you get in fresh food, like the vital life force flow and that lovely essential fatty acid and all that kind of stuff that you would get
Yes.
in a fresh food. So they're kind of on an even keel in a way.
Yeah.
So there are ways to do it if you have to ethically do it that way, but you must do it with fresh food. On the other hand, really, although I know how to support people, I wouldn't necessarily say that's what I would say to do. And we would be looking at ways that you feel comfortable to add things to the food, such as eggs or bone broth, or just a way to get the amino acids they really need back into that food, because it isn't ideal. And the studies are debatable, and they have been debated
Oh, yes.
many times. Yeah. So, and I think for a potted answer, that's what I'd say.
And it's also, I think it also depends on the dog breed you have, what you can do and what you can't, because it's also genetics and epigenetics. I mean, I had a Tuareg sighthound, Atsavak, and the Atsavaks with the Tuaregs, they are fed for hundreds of years. I mean, they live with their clan, with their people, and what they mostly are fed is grain that is heated and goat milk.
Yeah, I
It's
had
what
one
they
of
get,
those.
and
Wow,
they
goat
had,
milk.
yeah, and they get it. And this dog I had, she could drink 1 liter cold milk from the fridge, and she was fine. You know, because that's
Mm.
been in that breed for
Mm.
so long that it's okay. And I mean, I could have put her on a vegetarian diet, no problem. But if you have a Malamute and you put them on a vegetarian diet, you probably have a sick dog because they come from an area
Yeah,
where there's just meat
yeah, yeah.
and
So
fish.
what we're
You know,
talking about is epigenetics as well.
yes,
It's the energetics and the frequency and the
yes,
cellular memory in your dog, and also their biome tendency
of course,
well, because they can, if a dog has hardly, say they've been raised vegan, they will have a different kind of biome. They will
of
have
course.
developed that to cope with the food that's in front of them. Now, it doesn't mean their biome can't change, but initially when you do the changes, you might get things like diarrhea, flush throughs, and it panics a guardian. But actually, sometimes the shift needs to happen that way.
But also, and I would, in that dog, I mean, the Atsavak, if I give her meat, she would prefer the meat.
Yeah.
So, but the other thing also is, and that's my problem also with natural vegan, mostly vegan diet, but also a little bit with vegetarian, is that you change the pH, the acid in the stomach. And
Mm.
that produces problems. And I mean, it's not we don't have the time to discuss this, but a healthy dog has an acid of 1.5, so it's what we say. And when they get a vegetarian or vegan diet, it
Mm.
changes to 4.5, which means they can't destroy a lot of problems they are in contact with because they are so close to the ground, you know?
Yeah, very true. We're
And
high
that
up.
is something we should never,
Yeah.
ever forget.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true, because without that resilience in their stomach
Yeah.
acid, that's their first
Mm.
immunity,
Of
really,
course.
their first port of call against bacteria and that kind of thing. So
Which
yeah,
is the same problem if you feed so much grain and stuff like that, because it does the same thing, even if you feed meat, or the problem with processed food and all that stuff, you
well,
know?
that is the problem with
Yeah,
processed food as well. For
yeah,
certain, it is because it doesn't encourage the movement within the stomach walls that is supposed to happen, whereas
yeah.
whole food does. So then, when that movement is happening, the gastric acid is being pushed out. So if the processed food is there and the gut is just slowly swelling, the movement isn't there to encourage that gastric acid. So that's why it happens, isn't it?
Oh,
Now, I have a lot of sympathy for the intention,
of
that
course,
we all need to live more in
Yeah.
a more sustainable way, and the impact on the planet of all that
of
meat
course.
Well,
is
yeah, I mean, I'm not hugely into the idea that the green side of it. You know, I'm against pollution. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that's great at all. But I'm not of the opinion that veganism is going to support the planet.
I think it's more complex than that, but I do think that I mean, this is a big topic, but sure, I think as a human being, you do the planet and everybody else a service if you eat less meat, may possibly even, but also just from an animal welfare point of view. You know, it's the meat industry and the dairy industry is, you know, there's a lot of arguments that are very, very worthy, that points towards not consuming dairy products or meat products, and I absolutely feel those. At the same time, I just don't think it's fair to keep a carnivore as a pet and put them into that equation, and it's something that I consider quite a lot, because I think it is a problem. You know, how do we square that? Well, what do we do about that if we want to keep carnivores and at the same time we want to protect the planet and not necessarily push meat production? But I just do not think that the answer is to make our dogs go vegan or vegetarian. I think then, you know, pet rabbits are wonderful animals. You know,
Yes.
I mean, if that's what you want to do,
just as much fun as a dog.
well, yeah. If that's what you want to do, I really think you need a pet with longer ears. I don't think it's fair to make your dog go vegan. That's my opinion.
I agree.
And on a personal level, I have smaller dogs than my heart really wants, you know, because I think that's how I come to terms with that. That's how I can feed them what I feel is the ideal diet without, you know, the meat consumption that a giant, you know, my heart has 2 Great Danes. I mean, always did. I really would like, I love giant dogs. But that's how I square that one personally, that, you know, I will feed meat and I will feed high quality meat, but I keep smaller dogs so I can live with myself for doing it. And we each find our way of how we want to do that. But I think it's an interesting question, and I totally understand those, and I respect those that say I will not feed them meat. I honestly don't think you should have a dog. I think you should have a different kind of pet. You know, there are lots of herbivore animals, and
Yes.
I don't think it's fair to impose that on a
Well,
dog.
I mean, you know, like I was saying before, you know, we need to avoid intensive farming anyway, don't we? And the irony is that 9 times out of 10, when we're buying these processed vegan and vegetarian foods for our dogs, they're owned by the same people who make the meat ones. So you're actually funding the same industry anyway, you know?
Of course.
You've got to be able to do it with fresh food, really, to really understand your dog. If you're going that far, you need to be doing it.
And it's also an issue that raises its head in different forms, because to me it's similar to to people who say, well, I'd love to feed raw, but I can't afford. I have 3 large dogs. I can't afford to feed them raw. And for me, what it comes down to is we shouldn't really have dogs or pets. We shouldn't get these animals and take responsibility for them if we can't afford them. And that's both in terms of, if you can't afford to feed them a really healthy, ideal diet, then maybe you should only have had 1 dog, or you should have had smaller dogs. If you can't afford, it's not always about money. You know, it can be if you say, well, you shouldn't leave your dog home alone for 15 hours a day. Well, but I have to go to work. But then you shouldn't have the dog.
I know. Well, hindsight, Lise, is a wonderful thing. Or can we call it hound sight?
Sure.
Hound sight.
But we each have to come to terms with what our resources are.
Yeah.
And I absolutely understand the idea that you don't want to put meat into your household, but I think it's a problem if you want to have a dog.
Or a cat.
Yeah, or even more so a cat.
Yeah.
I think we have to question when we see these things on the media as well. The bottom line is, if we follow the money, the media is linked in with a lot of these companies that own these foods. So, you know, it's just an avenue for the message, really. It doesn't necessarily mean that the message is right for your dog. Good. So we have 5 minutes. do we have a very good, I don't know that we've actually blown up the comments with this.
Oh dear,
Yeah.
oh dear, you all
Oh,
hate
dear.
me now. There's
No,
something odd
no, they're all very positive. All very
There's
positive.
something odd going on that I
Agreement.
can see there are 25 comments, but I can only see 4 comments, so I'm not going to try and understand that.
That's okay. Lots of talk about Brussels sprouts as I scroll through. So yeah.
My dog loves
Any more
Brussels sprouts, by
questions?
the way.
Pardon? Your dog does like them,
Yeah, she
Beatrice.
loves Brussels sprouts. And she loves cauliflower, and yeah, she has a weird taste sometimes. So
Okay.
We almost don't have enough to. Should we do a quick
No,
question?
well, you go on then.
Well, what did you want to say?
I just wanted to say that if somebody pops up, it's because we're doing a live with them again. We're doing on the Natural Expo page, Natural Dog Expo page. After this, we're talking bone broth. So if somebody pops in, that's why. So don't think, hang on a minute, there's another guy been invited onto Holistic Vet Sisters.
If we suddenly have squatters like Nick popped up once.
Nick popped up once, didn't he? Yeah.
As he does.
Yeah. So now we only have 3 minutes, but go
read
with
the question.
It was Camilla who said, can you explain how you do a homeopathic test, specifically in relation to allergies? And the really short answer, having 2 homeopaths here, I hope we can agree, is that you don't.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, I write about this in my book as well, and the reason I hesitate is that I don't want to be rude about anybody, but there is if you want to be a homeopath, it's a 3 or 4 year course where
At
you
least.
study, where you study the homeopathic remedies at great length, and you take exams on this, and you learn how to take a case and how to analyze the case and how to match the patient to the remedy. And the whole core of that sort of holistic treatment is that it's never a quick fix. It's never, this is the condition, this condition is treated with this remedy. It has to be, you have to have an understanding that allows you to look at the individual as a whole, and out of that complex pattern, match that individual to a remedy that fits them. And
Yes.
because that takes a lot of skill, and it takes a lot of time, takes a lot, going back to resources, it's not necessarily cheap. You have to spend hours with a homeopath for someone to have a chance of finding the right remedy for you. Understandably, there's been a temptation to try and simplify it, to try and kind of put the holistic treatment form into a reductionistic or a conventional way of thinking, and use homeopathic remedies as if they were drugs or as if they were supplements, and just get quickly from this is the problem, this is the treatment. And it's tragic, but it's inevitable, and I'm sure it comes from a desire to make it more available and easier to use and all of that.
Yeah.
But it leads to things like machines that you hook you up. You can, I mean, people do kinesiology or all sorts of attempts at shortcuts to find someone's homeopathic remedy, and you can call it what you like, but it's not homeopathy.
Exactly.
What would you
exactly? We agree. I could not agree more.
Thank you. And you would never get a homeopath who would link someone up to a machine, or you know, I mean, try to do any of these kind of tests to find a remedy. You only do that if you're not a homeopath and you don't understand the core concepts of homeopathy. And I'm not saying that anybody doing these things, they're quite common and they don't do harm, except for the very, very big one, which I find heartbreaking, is that the result has to be that people think they've had homeopathy. They think they've tried homeopathy, but it didn't work. Where actually they haven't at all. And I think that's the big problem with it. That's not homeopathy. And if someone thinks it is, they may miss out on a very powerful form of medicine. So the short answer is there is no test. There is a consultation and assessment.
Here
We've
we
got
are.
people popping up now,
Popping
and
in.
it's time. Shall we just say goodbye, everybody?
Yes, we'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Beatrice.
Bye bye.
Beatrice. Bye.
Thanks for being with us, Beatrice.